Hello and welcome back. Today we are diving into the concept of ecological succession. And basically what this means is changes in ecosystems, how we track them, what causes them, and how ecosystems can get back to where they were after some sort of natural or human-made disaster. So let's get started. Before we get too into the different types of succession and what causes it and what happens, let's define that term. This might be a new term, so I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with what that definition is. And so succession is a natural and gradual change in the type of species that live in an area. So this is as something happens, in this case it was a forest fire, and it destroys all of the sort of large and main species in an area, how that ecosystem can get back to where it once was based on the natural and gradual changes of what species are existing in that area as it grows back to where it was. So there are a few steps of succession. The first step is, of course, an ecosystem disturbance. Now, this can be naturally occurring, or it can be a human-made occurrence, like deforestation or construction, but we're going to focus on a naturally occurring on this slide. So this could be like a volcano erupting, right, and that lava is going to cover an area and cool, and it's going to destroy whatever it was underneath that. It could be a landslide, flooding, tree falling, forest fire, hurricane. It could be like anything, right? Any sort of disturbance is going to kind of reset an ecosystem. And so once that ecosystem goes through a disturbance, the first type of species that are going to be able to live there are called pioneer species. And you've probably heard this word pioneer in history class. Well, because they were the first people to come over to, well, debatable, first people from Europe to come over to the Americas. And so we call the first species that live after an ecosystem disturbance the pioneer species. So again, the first living things to grow after a disturbance. Typically, these are things that are really hardy, really easy to grow and live in maybe areas that aren't super nutrient heavy. So these types of species would include bacteria, moss, lichen, small grasses like herbs, stuff like that. And you can see like this is the beginning, this is a disturbance, right? We're starting on bare rock here. And then lichens come in, you can see a little bit of green there, and then mosses start to come in, and then we start to get those herbs and weeds, and we're starting to get some life back into this area. Well, as those simple plants like lichen and moss and those herbs, they die, they add their organic material into that area, and they start to become the soil. So as you get more simple plants, as they die, the soil starts to increase, the amount of nutrients available in that area starts to increase, and that soil layer will thicken, and once it starts to thicken and those nutrients are there, more organisms can start to grow and survive in that area, like grasses, wildflowers, some other small types of plants, and eventually those plants are also going to die out, and they will add to the soil, and they will add more nutrients, and eventually bigger organisms will be able to move in, like shrubs and small trees, and eventually those will start to die out and add more nutrients to the soil, make the soil a thicker layer of soil, and eventually, the cycle continues, and eventually living organisms outside of plants can start to move in, like insects and small birds and mammals, because now there is enough trees, enough nutrients, enough food, enough shelter. This ecosystem is coming back to life here. When the ecosystem sort of grows back to where it was prior to this disturbance, we call that the climax community. This is like the end goal. And this climax community is consisted of the species that would be found in a mature ecosystem. So this is after many years. It could be hundreds of years, it could be like 150 to 200 years, but you're talking like a long time. This does not happen overnight. This does take quite a bit of time to get to the climax community. Some examples of a climax community would be like hardwood trees in forests, like when you go out in a hike and you see those trees that are like towering over you, those are the species that are found in a mature ecosystem. This could be also like grasses in prairies that you would find in like the Midwest, or even cacti in deserts, right? Just things that are signs of a fully functioning ecosystem. In this picture here, the climax community is this last sort of box here, and you see like these roots are deep. Look how much soil there is here. Like that's a really great, dense looking forest. So this is what you would want to see in a mature ecosystem. Now for our last slide, I just want to talk about the two types of succession. They're very easy to kind of separate, but I just want to make sure that you have the proper definition for both of them. So there's primary succession and secondary succession. Primary succession takes place in areas that have never previously supported life. So we're talking about any area that starts on bare rock, or there's no soil involved here. So it has to start from scratch. This is the first time life will be here. This could be like a lake that has dried up, cooled lava if it covers the entire area. It's gonna be like a sand dune, bare rock here. And this is an example, right? We have bare rock, okay, but we have lichens starting to grow on it, and then we're starting to get some small plants, and those lichens are starting to die off and add to the soil, and then you've got some grasses, and then we get some some intermediate species like small trees and bushes and shrubs. And eventually we're going to get to that climax community when there's enough soil and enough nutrients to support these really hardy trees, okay? So primary succession takes hundreds of years, like really, really long time, because you're starting from literally nothing. Now, secondary succession takes place in areas that have previously supported life, right? It starts on soil, so it's faster. It's way faster because you don't have to wait for all of this beginner soil to be formed. It's already there. There's just not anything else there. Now, secondary succession is usually, well, not usually, but a lot of it is caused by humans. I know, shocker, but humans do cause quite a bit of damage to ecosystems, and so some of this can be caused when humans cut trees down for timber, deforestation, they cut it down for farming purposes, or they overgraze. Animals are overgrazing areas and they kind of like eat up all the grass and stuff that's there, or using it for construction. But this can also be caused by natural things too, right? Forest fires, volcanoes that don't cover everything but just some of the area, hurricanes, tornadoes, anything like that, where there's soil left over. So in this case, again, this is the same image that was on the first slide, but we're starting with a forest fire. And when all of this area has been consumed by the fire, you're left with nothing. And so as time goes on, and you'll look at this, this is like way faster, right? 1 to 2 years, we've already got plants growing. 3 to 4 years, we've got grasses and perennials. This is like this like middle section over here. We're only like 4 years into this. It is going to take quite a bit of time for the intermediate species like shrubs, small trees, that kind of stuff to grow, just because trees take a while to grow. But you're going to see the results of this succession happen significantly faster. You're going to get to climax community significantly faster than you will in primary succession, and that's a big key point of difference between primary and secondary succession. All right, that's it for today. So proud of you, and I will see you in class.